right. Well, welcome to TOKY Office Hours. This is the February 2026 edition, and I'm excited to show you guys some of the work that we've been doing with AI and automation. And I'm going to preface all of this by saying that we are learning as we go. And this is not a polished and rehearsed demo. This is literally a live look into some of the things that we've been building, not all of them necessarily for TOKY or TOKY clients. Some of this you'll see one particular project that I was doing for myself, and one that was done for a friend that I thought was very relevant to the kind of work that we do in marketing in the AEC space. Um, so if you happen to catch last month's episode, I gave you a tour of the podcast studio, and if not, that video is on YouTube and you can check it out. But when I start looking all over the place, it's because I've got a big screen here with all the stuff that I'm going to be showing you. So that is what's happening. And like I said, this is live, so there'll be some stutters and things as we go while I remember exactly how something worked. I did look at all of this stuff again last night, but you build something and then you start using it, and then you're like, how did I build that again? So we'll take a look and see what we come up with. And again, this is interactive, so please, by all means, ask questions, and I will do my best to answer them. So with that, let me just give a little bit of background. So this is AI and automation in action, and those two components kind of work together. And there's a lot of, I think, folks that think about AI because it's top of mind for everyone. Everyone is, either full bore using it, or they're dabbling in it, or they're scared that it's going to run them over, or whatever. We're all in different places. It's the typical technology curve. But I think a lot of folks are still using AI as a kind of glorified search engine or a tool for writing email. And there's a lot more that it can do than that. And this is not really about necessarily the classic AI chatbot with, ChatGPT or what have you. This is a little bit more into some of the additional things that you can do with this, and where I think that AI helps us as non-technical people do things that are a bit more technical that allows us to get more work done. Um, so I think in that vein, a lot of people think about coding and automation as something that's best left to programmers. I think there's big budgets that have to be involved. We got to get somebody highly technical. And there is elements of this that are technical, and it certainly lends itself to someone who thinks a little bit more technically. But if you've been successful at learning software like InDesign, and you have a logical way of thinking, this is very much doable. And I think if I leave you with one takeaway from all of this, it's that AI tools can actually help you learn how to do these things. You can ask it, about any particular thing you're wanting to try to accomplish, and it will help you think through it. And I'm going to try and show you a little bit of that today. So this is really about how do we speed up the work that we do, particularly the parts that are the mundane, the average, the everyday, so that we can do the stuff that really we need our expertise or our creativity. Someone I heard say, this is about, AI and automation removing the mundane so that we can focus on the remarkable. And that's really what this is about. So talking a little bit about the tools that I'm using. So my primary tools from an AI perspective are ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Google Notebook LM, Nano Banana, Perplexity, and Anthropic's Claude. So I'm using all of these. Our team is primarily using ChatGPT and the Google Suite, all sort of under the Gemini, Notebook LM, Nano Banana kind of umbrella. The demonstration that I'm going to be showing you today is using Claude Cowork, and Claude Code, which I've been leaning into a lot. I think there's a lot of things that this platform does that is pretty exciting. Now, ChatGPT, OpenAI just came out with an updated version of their their platform that is similar to Claude Code. For some reason, the name is escaping me right this second. But each of these platforms is coming up with their own versions of things. Google has anti-gravity, which is a kind of version of Claude Code. So you can accomplish a lot of the same things in different platforms, whatever you're comfortable in. I'm a dabbler, and so I like to play with a lot of different tools. But what I recommend for most people is pick a tool and try and focus on it and get good with that one tool. They're going to continue to play leapfrog with each other. So try not to have too much FOMO as you go along. Now, on the automation side, we're primarily using a platform called N8N, and I'm going to show you that platform, not in a lot of detail, but enough that I hope sort of whets your appetite for what it can do. But there's also platforms called Make, and you may have heard of Zapier because it was sort of the OG in this space, that do things that are similar. For me, N8N just kind of works the way that I think, and I really love how Claude and Claude Code interacts with it to be able to create things for me based on what I tell it I'm trying to do. And then I'm on a Mac, so everything that you're going to see is on a Mac. Some of these software programs really only run on a Mac. I use a couple, Automator and Keyboard Maestro, to do some automation of things happening on my machine. You're going to see Automator a little bit in action here, but you're definitely not limited to that. And I'm going to show you that here in a second. So that's the tool set.
Jerry, you may get to this, but I'm curious, are you mostly using paid versions of these?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, the good point. Quick note on that. We only use paid versions because it's only with the paid versions that your data is not being shared to the model. And you need to make sure that you're checking those boxes because sometimes it's an option and it's not necessarily turned on by default. So you need to make sure that you're checking the options. And that's particularly with the AI. The automation stuff, you're only going to really be able to get value out of it by paying for it, but you don't have to worry about the privacy issue in the same way that you do with AI. And if you're nerdy about it, on the Claude side, I actually have the Max version. So they come in different tiers. So there's the free, there's Pro, which is like the $20 a month version. That's what we do with ChatGPT. And then Gemini's built into our Google Workspace plan. But on the Claude Code side, a couple of our team members have the Pro version, the $20 a month version. I have the Max version because I'm using it a lot. And you will quickly burn through context, which is essentially the AI's memory space, really, really quickly. Using and the token, the amount of tokens that you have, those two things in the Pro version when you're doing some of the stuff that I'm showing you. But you can get started with the Pro version, no problem. So I'm going to try in the time that we have to show you 3 demos. The first, I'm going to show you kind of at a high level, and this is a research project that I did that utilized N8N for automation, Google Sheets, and Perplexity. And then I'm going to show you a project that I did that was converting the colors in icons. And that used Claude Chat and Automator, but I'm actually going to show you a version that I did last night while I was playing around with it that doesn't use Automator at all. And then I'm going to show you how I've automated the creation of a document in Adobe Illustrator. And that uses a combination of things, which all look really scary, and they're not because Claude Code does all the work for you. So with that, I think, let's see. Oh, I maybe have one more slide. Oh, yeah. Like I said, so I'm using N8N for automation. And yeah, I think this was an extra slide, so we'll ignore that. All right, so with that, I don't think I need Keynote anymore, so I'm going to close out of that and try and get this to a version. Okay, so what you're seeing here in my browser is N8N. So N8N, as I said, is an automation platform, and it operates on a very similar principle to what Zapier or Make does. And these nodes, each one of these represents an action that's going to happen in a workflow. So it's a pretty straightforward, if you've ever done anything with mapping out a process, that's exactly what this is. It's step one, it's step two, it's step three, each one building on the one before. And then when you see this little line here, this is a loop. So I want to drop back and give a little explanation of how this project happened, and then kind of walk you through a little bit of it. So we do naming projects for a lot of different kinds of companies, including architecture and engineering firms. And since a lot of you are in this space, you're very familiar with the fact that a huge number of architecture and engineering firms are named after people, generally the people that founded them, not always, but usually. And in naming, when you're renaming an existing company that was named after, the founders or what have you, the default seems to be, oh, well, we'll just turn it into the initials of the founders. So you see a lot of that. But sometimes, we are asked to completely rename it, moving away from the founders' names, moving away from initials, and needing to come up with something completely different. And often that's a challenge for architects and engineers who have been in the business for a long time to sort of wrap their mind around, because those names often, because they're often coined names, new things that you're coming up with, they don't really sound like the traditional engineering or architecture firm. And so it's a little hard for them to wrap their minds around. And I was just thinking about that, and I had this curiosity. I know that a lot of firms are named after the firm founders, but I didn't know how many. And I wanted to try and figure that out. And I could have, so what we're looking at here is Architectural Records top 300 US architecture firms from last year. And I could look at this and basically, kind of based on my knowledge, know roughly which ones are named after the founders or what have you. But some of them, when you start getting into things like HDR or HKS, it's like, yeah, I think that's named after the founders. I'm not 100% positive because I've never done the research to figure out what HKS stands for or what HDR stands for. If I dug around, I could find it. So how long would it take to go through a list of 300 firms, go to their websites or wherever, and find out for sure where did the name come from, particularly if it's initials? So it's the kind of project that you're just not going to do because conservatively, if it took you 10 minutes to go find the website and then go track down the information so that you were certain about it, it's a week's worth of work. And to scratch an itch so that I have this, more complete understanding isn't worth the time. But I thought that it would make an interesting project to test automation on. So what I did is went to Architectural Record and I literally just copied this data and I pasted it into Google Sheets. So it basically looks like this, right? So this data set comes with the name of the firm, the location of the headquarters, and a bunch of data that wasn't relevant to what I was trying to do, but no URL or anything else. So I took this data and I turned it into a list. And this list included the name and the headquarters, and then a field or column for the URL, a place for a description of the origin of the name, a place for the AI to give me a citation of where it came up with that information, a drop down that, was it the founder person? Was it named after a place, something else, or it couldn't figure it out? And then the initials, if it was or was not initials, and then what the initials stood for, the full name. So that's the things that I wanted to learn. So I put all that into a list. And I've got a little short demo list because in the end, cut to the spoiler at the end, it took the automation about an hour to go through the entire list of 300 names to get to the ones that to get through this entire list. So let me show you. Let me go back to N8M. Now, the first thing that I want to say is you might look at this and say, "Oh my God, so how long did it take you to learn N8N?" And yes, I spent a little bit of time. I've spent a little bit of time over the past few months or what have you learning the platform, but I am by no means an expert in this platform. What I really did is went to Claude and had it help me build this workflow. So it was a simple explanation, more or less what I just told you. And part of the secret that I would also share is when you're working in Claude or any AI, use voice to put information in because you can get so much more information in more quickly. There's a lot of programs like Whisperflow. I use a local program on my Mac called Voice Inc. That allows me to very quickly use a keyboard shortcut, talk, and then it just pastes it into the field. So that allows me to just ramble about what it is that I'm trying to accomplish and tell it that, hey, I've got this Google Sheet and this is what I want you to do with it. And what's cool is that it actually builds this for you. Now, you can use just chat. And I think when I did this, it was back in December, and all I was using was just the chat function. And so in that case, it told me this is the structure you need to build, and it walked me through step by step which node I needed to put in and how to fill in the node. And there's code in one of these, like this code right here. I didn't write any of this. The AI wrote it for me, gave it to me, and I pasted it in. Now, using Claude Code, it will now actually interact directly with this. So let me see if I can. I'm going to switch what I'm sharing. Okay, so we're in Claude Code now, which again, this is only available in the desktop app. This is not available, I believe, in the web app. So you'll need to download the desktop app. But up at the top, you've got chat, which is all of your different chats. You've got Claude Cowork, which we'll talk about in a second, and then you've got Claude Code. So I couldn't find the original chat that I had, but last night I was playing with it, and I was able to basically tell it to go look at my N8N. So I need to digress for just a second and explain how that happens. So um, there's a term called MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol. And basically, it's a way for AIs to communicate with software platforms like N8N. So there's another acronym called API, which stands for Application Programming Interface, I believe, or interchange. And it's a way for data to be exchanged
Mute. Okay.
between the software programs. And that's how something like N8N communicates with Google Sheets. Google Sheets makes certain commands available through an API, and it's able to access them. Well, MCP exposes all those kinds of commands and a lot more, and allows the AI to interact. So now I have Claude Code. When I come down here and click this little button to connectors, there's a connector here called N8N MCP native and another one called MCP community. This is deeper than we're going to get into today, but it basically makes it possible for Claude Code to talk directly to N8N and be able to make changes and see what's going on. So I was able to then take it, basically just say, a while ago, we created an N8N workflow called Architecture Firm Research. Can you take a look and see if you see that workflow? So it went and searched, it found the URL, it told me when it was created, and it gave me a full breakdown of what the workflow did. So now Claude Code knows about this workflow, and if we have time, I could actually make a change of some kind to this. But we may not get to that. So what I want to show you is sort of how this then works. But the greater point is, if I hadn't already created this because of that connection, I could simply sit here in Claude Code and say, hey, this is what I want to create. And now, instead of it walking me through the process node by node, okay, add this Google Sheets node, fill in this data, it actually just creates all of it for me. And then we step through it and can troubleshoot it. So here's what's happening in this node, or this N8N workflow, and I'm going to swap back so you're seeing that on the screen. And I'm going to try and zoom in a little bit here. So basically, this workflows like this can be triggered a lot of different ways through different kinds of automations. They can be scheduled to run every so often at a certain time. They can be triggered by an external link that you click through something called a webhook, or you can actually just come in and run them manually. So this one is one that's run manually. So as soon as I click execute workflow, what it's doing is it's going to the Google Sheet, which I've specified all the information related to that Google Sheet. And it's reading the list of all of the firms that are in that sheet. And then it's filtering that list based on the ones that do not have a URL. So if I want to rerun the list against some of them, I can just delete the URL field. And if it's empty, it'll run against just those. And then it's going to take each one of those items that's in that list, and it's going to do a loop. So it's going to execute these next couple of steps once per item that's in that Google Sheet until it reaches this point of being done, and then it's obviously done. So a lot of the magic is that N8N can connect to all different kinds of AIs. It can connect directly. You need to have an API key, which is not that difficult to get. Claude will walk you through, or ChatGPT will walk you through the process of getting an API key. Or you can use third parties. So I'm using Open Router. What's cool about that is I have one API key that lets me access a whole bunch of different AIs. So I could decide Perplexity wasn't doing a good job, and I could switch it to ChatGPT or Claude Opus 4.6 or whatever I want. So within here, here's the basic information. And on the left side is all of the data that's flowing into this node from previously. So this is all of the firms that it's going to loop over. And here's the data that's going to get output. And here's the information that it sends. Again, this all feels complex, but Claude told me step by step all the things I needed to do here, including writing the prompt that I gave to it. So this concept of having an AI inside of your automation workflow is the same as if I just went directly to Perplexity or ChatGPT and typed this prompt in. So I could go to any one of them, type a prompt in, and have it go do the research on one of these firms. But then I'm going to have to go and do it again and again and again, or run the risk of it losing track or what have you. So in this case, I'm able to take that same kind of prompt and put it into this field. And again, I explained to Claude what I wanted to research, and it wrote the prompt for me. And then I made a couple of edits to it, and then I paste that prompt in. And now Perplexity is going to execute that prompt. And the prompt is basically go and take the name, find the firm that matches that name, the URL for it, look at their website and any other resources to determine whether or not it's named after the founder, and if so, who they were and what the origin story is. And I won't get into all the details, but that's basically it in a nutshell. So from there, now it takes that response, again, one firm at a time, and it runs this code to parse that out and turn it into the data fields that are going to get put into the spreadsheet. Because again, if you did this one by one using ChatGPT, it's going to give you back a paragraph of text. And what you really need if you're going to put it into a spreadsheet is to break that up and put it into the appropriate fields. So this automation takes care of all of that additional busy work and takes the response from the AI, parses it out, and then here's where it goes back to Google Sheets, and it one by one takes each one of those pieces of the answer it got back from the AI, and it puts it into the appropriate field. And then the last thing is Perplexity doesn't want you to run it too fast. This is why it takes an hour instead of 10 minutes, because if you hit it too hard with too many requests, then it hits the API rate limit. So basically all we did is at the end of the loop, introduce like a little delay of 2 seconds before it went back and does it again. So that's all it is. And again, Claude wrote or helped me write this whole thing. It even told me what the instructions were. So if I hit execute, you'll see it start to work, right? So each one of these, as they light up red, is it doing its thing. So you can see it's executing the node here. Here's all the information parsed out the way that I told it in the prompt to parse it out. And then it continues down. So it's doing its thing. So I think it's already on the next one. Here we go. And now it's updating the Google Sheet. And so now if I switch over to the Google Sheet, it's populating the information into it in real time. So I could sit here and watch it in the Google Sheet, or I can go take lunch, which I think is what I did. So when it ran this, it took about an hour to get through all 300. It sort of had a hiccup on 4 of them. I deleted the URLs and reran it again, and it successfully completed all 300. There was some of them where, my prompt was clear. If you can't determine for sure where the information came from, and that it's accurate, then you need to say you can't find the information. So there was some cases where it could not find the information, but the end result was this list. Let me close this. So this list, let me make this a little bit, is basically, here's the name of the firm, right? Here's the description of where the name came from. I went through and spent another hour doing a sanity check, looking at it to make sure that I believed the results that it came from. If this was a deliverable that I was giving to a client, I probably would create a second part of the workflow where I would have 1 or 2 other AI agents go and review the data and try to confirm or deny the data. Because, of course, we know that AI can hallucinate. So if this was an actual deliverable I wanted to give to a client, I would take it through some additional checks to make sure that the data was sufficient. So I think based on the time we have, I'm not going to try and demonstrate adding any additional functionality. But before we move on to the next thing, does anybody have any questions? All right. Well, then I'm going to move on to the next thing. Let me hide this and let's see. So we're going to look at a app that I did for a friend who basically the backstory is their company had hundreds of icons that they had developed, and they're basic line art kinds of icons that had 2 or 3 colors and used the brand colors. And they wanted to be able to convert the color to a different color to use in a different division. They like the icons, but let's go from blue to green and have a second set. And so they were looking at, potentially having to open all of those files in Illustrator and change all of the colors. If they were set up properly, which I think they were originally in Illustrator, they might have all been on a single artboard, or they might have been all grouped onto multiple artboards, which would be a little bit easier way to do it. But we just wanted to experiment and see what could be done with it. And what was cool is that the final format that was going to be used by the company was SVG. And SVG is interesting because SVG is essentially underneath a text file. So bear with me 1 second, and I'm going to get to my appropriate folder here so I can show you an example of what we're talking about. All right, hang on a second. Let's get this up on the screen. All right, so I'm in the Finder here, and I've got an example of these SVG files. So this is not their actual ones. I just went out for the purposes of this demonstration and found some icons, and then I colored them. So these are, just off the internet from like the Noun Project or something. And these are all in SVG format. So if I open these with a text editor like BBEdit and you take a look at it, obviously this is not human readable for the most part. But what's interesting about this is that the color is. Now, is it necessary for you to have known this already? No, because you're going to go to Claude or ChatGPT and you're going to explain, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And you're going to give it all of that context. And then it knows that this is a text file, and it knows that there is the colors are specified in the text file. So literally, you could open this up and you could change this this hex color, and it would change it in the actual file itself. But that again is going to require you to open all of them one by one or do some kind of automation. So how do we create an automation? So the first thing that I did is basically had Claude create for me um, a couple of different options. The first one used the command line, which can be a little intimidating sometimes for folks, but it suggested that since my friend was on a Mac and I'm on a Mac, that we could use Automator, which is Apple's automation tool. So the challenge with Automator is that it requires code underneath. So this is the Automator thing. And if I open it, well, that's going to run it. Sorry. Well, I'm not going to open it and show you right now, but we can look at that later. Let me just run it and you can kind of see what happens. So basically, it told me exactly step by step how to set Automator up, and it gave me the code that was going to go into it because it's a script inside of Automator. So basically, all I have to do is put in the hex values. So I have them here. So we're going to change the green to orange. So the green color is this. And then it wants the new hex color, and the new one is this. And as soon as I hit next, it's going to ask me for, whoops, come on. Well, hang on, let's do this. All right, it's asking me for the folder that these exist in. So I've navigated to that folder, and here's all of my icons, and I'm just going to hit choose. And then it comes back with this message and it says, ready to replace colors. And it tells me we're going to go from this one to this one to this one. And it actually suggested creating a backup so that we weren't destroying the files if something happened, which I agreed was a great idea. So I let it do that. So I'm going to hit replace, and then it says it's done. So 9 of 9 files have been updated, backup has been saved. All of that took literally as long as it took for you to see it happen. And if I bring this back, now if we look at these files, now they are orange and blue. And it was as simple as that. So I wanted to demonstrate this because we often find ourselves with tasks that take a lot of time and require a lot of repetitive work. And there's better ways of doing some of these things. And those better ways often feel intimidating. Like in the back of your mind, you may know that you can script InDesign or Illustrator. You may know that there are ways to do scripting of things, but it may feel like something that's inaccessible. But the reality is that it's not. You can do it simply by jumping into an AI like Claude and having it take you through that process. So I want to show you what I did last night because this is an interesting addition to this. So move this out of the way and bring Claude back up. And let's see, get to the right. Here we go. So I was looking for the script or the chat where I created this process, and it's actually here in chat. So I just used chat. This wasn't even using Claude Code. So what you just saw creating the Automator thing was done in a conversation with chat. And I'm going to kind of walk you through really quickly what happened. So I told it, I have a large batch of SVG files created in Illustrator. I'd like to change one specific color in all the files by directly editing the SVG. Now, I happen to know you were able to do that, but I could have asked it what the best approach was to doing this. I said, if I know the hex code of the color I want to change, is it possible to create a script that edits all the files in a folder? And it said, absolutely. We could do a bash script. That's a script that runs in the terminal. And it immediately creates a script, which I can just hit copy and paste to be able to use. And then it does all this thinking, right? It says, this particular flag makes it case insensitive because sometimes, hex codes are uppercase or lowercase, and sometimes that can make a difference to, a script and how it processes. And it gives me a bunch of other things. Here's where it suggests the backup. We should consider adding a backup setup or running this command without the I flag in order to preview the changes. And would I like it to build a more robust version that can handle RGB values? And I said, yeah, that sounds great. Would you do that for me? So it did. So now it creates a new version, and this is a little bit bigger. So it actually creates this entire script that I'm able to download. It's like, okay, well, what am I going to do with this? So I had a couple more questions that I asked it about, the colors themselves. It made a couple more updates. It gave me some more code. Um, I went back and forth with it a little bit. And then we get down to the end, and I said, is there a way to make this easy and repeatable for a novice? I'm thinking even combining the script with an automator action. I don't know exactly how this is supposed to be done. I'm thinking that it's going to use the script it already created, just so I can have something to double click on. It says, oh, that's a great question. And so it gives me options. Option 1, we're going to do it in the terminal. Option 2, we're going to create an automator application. And it thinks that's best for my team. And this is the move that I should make. And so it confirms that I'm on a Mac, which it should have known already, but didn't. And so now it's going to build out the automator version. So it can't build the app directly. So that's a limitation, but it walks me through the process of doing it. So it gets down here and it gives me the complete instructions, step by step, of what I'm supposed to do. What does this thing do? This is the automator setup guide. What does it do? How do I set it up? Open the app, choose applications in the search bar on the left, search for run Apple script, and step by step by step, it just walks me through exactly what I'm supposed to do, and then gives me the script that I'm going to paste in, and gives me a couple of tips at the end. So literally anybody who can operate a computer could do that and put that together. And so in the end, it creates that automator script. So cool. Now you've got a sense of how that was created. I was interested in what if I did this in Claude Code, what might happen differently? So I went back in last night and I gave it instructions, basically the exact same instructions that I gave chat earlier, and it came up with some new options. First, it came up with the terminal option, which we've already been down that path. And then it came up with another basically terminal option. And then it came up with this idea of creating a web app. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Let's do that. So basically, I'm just telling it to go ahead. Let's see. Yeah, I told it I'd like to create something reusable, basically an app that I can point at a folder of icons and specify the old hex color and the new hex color. And it says, that's great. Let me work on that. Now, one of the key things if you do choose to use Claude Code is there are a couple of options down here, and one of them is plan mode. I would always start these projects in plan mode because it doesn't go off and create things. Instead, it thinks through the process and offers you approaches, and then you can choose which approach, and it's going to ask you questions along the way to get to a final solution. And when it finally comes back with something where you're like, yeah, that makes sense. I love that. Let's do that. Then you can put it into either ask permissions or auto accept edits, and it will take you step by step through the process. And literally all you're doing is just saying, yep, I agree. Go ahead and do that next step. Yep, I agree. Do that next step. So you can see here that I said, he gave me some options. I said, whichever's simplest and gets the job done, and I want you to build it for me. So it says, okay, let me present the design first. So it gives me the design. This is what we're going to create. This is the files that are going to be involved. This is how the whole thing is going to work, et cetera, et cetera. And do I think that this looks great? Anything I want to add or change? I said, nope, let's do it. So it's straightforward. And so it's skipping the formal design doc and going straight to creation. And it's starting to build out all of the necessary files in order to do this. I'm not providing any input. Everything I'm scrolling through right now is just Claude Code doing stuff. And at most, I'm just saying, yes, continue, yes, continue, yes, continue. So then it gives me the final instructions of what I need to do now that it's built the thing. And basically, it's built a little web app, which I'm going to try to show you now. So if I come back here, here is the little app that it built for me. So I'm going to reload this page, and this is it. So nothing in this web page is something that I built. It built the entire thing. It decided the colors, it decided the text, all of it. SVG color swapper, replace a hex color, blah, blah, blah. And it gave me two options. One is I can navigate to a specific folder, or two, I can drag and drop a bunch of files on it. So I can either aim it at a folder that has hundreds of files.
Jerry, we're not seeing the app.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. There we go. Better? All right. So I have the choice of either giving it a local folder and loading a folder, or I can drag and drop. And it made that decision as an option. So if I navigate here to my folder, and I'll just use the backups that it's created for me earlier, and I just drag and drop these in, it loads them all up into this little interface. And now all I need to do, this is so cool, is put in the same numbers that I did earlier. And let's see, F8D00. Or I could have clicked on this and it had like a little color picker. It did that too, just using sort of off the shelf parts. And then as soon as I've got those colors selected, I can hit apply changes. All right, come on. Well, let's try that one more time. Of course, like I said, it's a demo, so, is it going to always work? Oh, I might have a typo in here. Let me try this one more time. C1D72F 8D00. Yep. All right, well, I promise you that yesterday evening when I did this, it worked.
You're missing the hashtag.
Oh, thank you. It's really small on that screen. In fact, if I were to tell it something to do, no, it doesn't. It's just not going to like me today. Well, bottom line is it was actually working. Let's see if it works if I load the folder or reload the page. Um, so I can just drag and drop this folder in here. There's the folder. So I'm going to load the folder. Okay. And then I'm going to do C2F. I'm just going to pick a color. Oh, there we go. Do I want to overwrite? Yes. There we go. So I don't know why the drag and drop wasn't working. Frankly, what you can do, because this didn't work when I built it the first time, it came up with an error. I just told it that I was getting an error, and it recognized what the error was. So I said, oh, I got an error missing parameters. I dragged and dropped about 9 files from another folder and it said, oh, that's the download endpoint failing. Let me look at what's happening. It figures out what was happening, then it updated it and fixed it, and then it worked. So now, I can apply those changes, and if I go back to the folder, those have all been changed. And if I wanted to do something else, so let's see if this will work really quickly just to kind of demonstrate, but I want to get to this one last thing here. But let's say, hey, this is actually, let me show you this. Well, you're not going to see it, but I'm going to talk to it. hey, this is great, but the text on the screen is really small and a little hard to read because of the colors. Can you make this bigger text and make the contrast a little easier? So let me show you what's happening. So here in real time, there's the instructions that I just gave it. It's looking at the current styles and bumping up the readability. Um, it's updating the CSS variables and font sizes throughout. Those are all in the style block. It's basically just telling me exactly what it's doing step by step. These little insight blocks are great because it helps you understand a little bit of what it's doing. I love these little, when it's thinking, it has like an endless supply of weird little words like wibbling and noodling. So meanwhile, I could be doing something else while it's fiddling around with this and crafting and wibbling and noodling and what have you. And in fact, I'm going to do that for a second and I'm going to switch context for all of you. While it does that, and we'll come back and revisit that in a second, I'm going to show you the last project that I worked on. And that's going to be this. So we're here in Illustrator. And all right, come on, let me get my. So this is a project that I did for our church. So as the resident designer, I have had the privilege for the last, I don't know, 10 years of designing the church bulletin every week. And um, which, I created a template a long time ago for and would open this up and each week and have to fill in all of the information. Find the information, fill it in, all that kind of stuff, which gets to be tedious because a lot of it is stuff that you would know ahead of time. So a few years ago, I decided, well, I'm just going to create all 52 of them ahead of time. And then when I open it up, instead of it taking 20 minutes each week, it'll take a few minutes each week in order to put in the stuff like upcoming events and the attendance information from last week in it. Um, so that's what I was doing. Well, this year, beginning of the year, it's time to do that again. And I thought, wow, I wonder if AI can help me with that. Let's find out. So I jumped into Claude and explained exactly what I was trying to do and said, I know that Illustrator can script things. Can you help me figure out how to do that? And it did. So same similar kind of process as what I was just showing you, explaining what I wanted to do and having it walk me through the process. And this one's a little bit more complex in some ways because there is some data and things that are involved. So on the right-hand side, in fact, if I see if I can show you an example of the output. So here's an example of the output, right? Everything's been filled in. And over here, we have like a little devotional and it all follows the same format. And this content all comes from a book, an old 1800s book that we like. And that book, I had a PDF of. So I would literally copy and paste the information from the PDF, restyle it, et cetera, to put it in. Same with all the rest of this information. So what I was able to do, and this is where Claude Cowork comes in. So I'm going to jump to Claude Cowork for a second. I was able to go into Cowork and tell it to take that PDF and turn it into a JSON file. Let's make sure that I'm looking at the right place. Yep, here we go. Create devotional JSON. So I fed it the PDF and I talked to it and basically said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take this PDF and create a JSON file. Now, a JSON file, just to illustrate what that looks like, here's the data that it creates out of it. I'll just open this up in a text editor. This is basically just a standard structured format that AI is really good and web applications are really good at reading. And basically the way it works is it's a series of brackets that has a field name and then the data. So the dark blue is the field name and then the data. And this just repeats over and over and over again through the whole document for all of the pages of that PDF. You don't need to know much here beyond the fact that JSON exists, and it's a great way to provide structured data. In fact, I'm using it for that. I'm using it for the memory verses. I'm using it for the event list. All of those things are basically built in JSON files. And I had Claude Cowork do all that for me. I just went, so Cowork is basically like a fusion between chat and Claude Code, specifically focused on being able to do things with files on your machine. So I was able to say, here's this PDF. Now I want you to go create the JSON file. And I just told it, this is the basic structure. I know that we're going to need a date, whether it's AM or PM, because that's how the book is structured, the verse reference, the content. And then I told it exactly how I wanted to extract it. And it went through and it built the whole thing out. First, it told me this is the sample. This is a sample of what it's going to look like. I said, that's great. It asked me a couple of questions. I said, that's fine. And then it built it. So that's what happened to create the data. Now, if I go back to Claude Code, if I go back to Illustrator, so we're going to go back to this screen. Claude Code walked me through the process of saying, okay, well, you have that verse reference. Let's put a little placeholder in. So these little brackets and placeholders, if you've ever done mail merge, it's a very similar concept. It's just what it's going to replace and how. And again, I'm just walking through this with it, and it's telling me exactly where to put the things. And ultimately, what it's creating is a script. So in Illustrator, if you go to the file menu, which is off screen, you can't see right now, but if you go to the file menu, here, I'll show you. Come on. Sorry, this is a very big monitor that's sort of subdivided up. But you go to scripts, you can go to other script. And when you go to other script, you're able to choose a particular script that you want to run. So it created this generate bulletin.jsx, which is a form of JavaScript. And that looks like this. So this is the code that's going to take all of that data and is going to put it into Illustrator. Once again, I didn't write any of this. I just told it what I wanted it to do. So if I open that script up, click open. Now it's going to ask me, and so it knows what the next Sunday date is. It automatically populates that. But if I wanted to do a different date, I could. And then I just hit OK. And then it's going to ask me for some information. So, how much was the offerings? How much did people give to the missions program, et cetera? How many people attended? So I can change all of this information to whatever I want it to be and then hit OK. So this is the information that changes week to week. And then if I go back here to Illustrator, if you blinked, you missed it. It just updated all of that content to February 22nd. You can see the information that I put in is all in there. And it pulled all the rest of the information, including the appropriate devotional from that JSON file. And then basically, if I go back here, it gave us, wrong one. It gave us the output, like a little, and this is Illustrator's script functionality. And now I'm done. So at that point, I'm ready to print, and it literally took me 5 seconds, or however long it took me to type the information in. So again, all of this is accomplished using Claude and Claude Code to write the code and to walk me through the process. I didn't need to know anything except what I was trying to accomplish and a general idea of how to get there. And even if I didn't have the general idea, I could have asked it the best way to do it. And as you saw with this color swapper, it would just walk you through that process step by step. So now I'm going to go back and we'll take one last look at the color swapper. So it's finished updating and it says now refresh the page in your browser. Here's a summary of what changed. So let's see what it did. I'm going to go back to that screen and I'm going to refresh my browser. All right, so it did. It made everything bigger and made the contrast a little bit better. If that's not enough, I could absolutely go back and tell it I wanted it to do more or whatever other changes that I wanted it to make. Um, and it was as simple as just giving it the instructions and it then updated it for me. All right, I'm going to stop there because we are at time. But if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Jerry,
Yes.
how are you? I guess
Good.
just me on here, but this was
That's fine.
really, really awesome. I feel like it's been oddly challenging to see really good demonstrations and applications of AI for like our work in our industry specifically. So this was like super, super cool. And I took like tons of notes. Um, I was wondering, so my team right now is like we're experimenting with a lot of different AI, like, tech softwares, like
Yep.
Joist AI and Shred, and we actually just implemented Open Asset, and I think we also are right now rolling out Shred because it integrates really well with Open Asset.
Right.
Um, and I was wondering if you, like, have seen or have seen people successfully use any other type of, marketing specific AI softwares that might be helpful for our industry because I feel like there's a lot, like, out there, but, like, I think a lot of them are a lot more traditional, like, B2C softwares, and obviously, it's not the kind of marketing that myself and a lot of us do, so I was just curious, just wanted to pick your brain if you've seen anything out
Y
there.
yeah, no, I at this point, I have not really seen anything other than the proposal software that is specifically, designed for AEC marketing. There's other stuff within engineering and architecture that people are developing AI products, or plugins for existing things like Revit and what have you, but on the marketing side, not really. Um, there's one other, um There's one other company that I saw at a conference recently, and I'll have to get back to you on the name. So, if you shoot me a note, I'll send you, the name of it when I find it. And it was specifically for, um, creating and updating, resumes and project sheets.
Cool.
That's the only other one that I can think of off the top of my head that's AEC marketing specific. After that, you're really gonna be getting into stuff that is either more traditional marketing, like a HubSpot or what have you, or you're starting to kinda do things, on your own, which is part of what prompted me to do this because I know that those kinds of applications are very specific to a particular task, but it's not the only thing that we do, and sometimes the things that bog us down and take a lot of time, um, or that we just never get to are the kinds of things that are sort of one-off projects. Um, so I scratched an itch in a matter of an hour or so with this, church bulletin builder, right? It took me less time to have Claude help me build this thing out than for me to create the 52 templates like I was doing in years past, and that was faster than doing it each month. Um, the same thing with the color swapper. It took way less I literally did that on an airplane, creating the first version of that. So, you can solve these little problems, that come up, and, that nobody's gonna make a color swapper program like that because that isn't a significant enough need, but 700 or 800 icons and changing the colors of all of them manually, um, would just be the kind of thing that 3 years ago, 3 months ago, we would have just buckled down and done it by hand, or we would have come back to whoever asked and said, "Well, I can do that, but I'm gonna have to dedicate a designer to it for 3 solid days to be able to get it done." And then they'd be like, maybe I don't wanna do it." So
Mm.
being able to scratch these individual little itches or develop things that are very specific. I've developed a bunch of workflows, N8N workflows that are very specific to our particular needs here. They wouldn't work for anybody else, but they save us time. Even little bits of time adds up over time. In fact, N8N has this cool feature um, when you see if I can pull it up here. I go to our automations and then go to, so we have some around timesheets. And there, we had somebody who was sending out a reminder that you needed to get your timesheet in. And so we built a workflow that does it for them. It goes and looks and sees everybody who has their time in or doesn't, and it sends an email that says these people need to get their time in. And that's something that would have taken 10 minutes every morning for somebody. And there's a thing. Oh, here it is. No, that's workflow history. Sorry, I know it's here somewhere. There's a thing where I put in how long this particular task takes, and it can tell me how much time has been saved by how many times this thing has run. Um, oh, here, no, it's in here somewhere. It doesn't really matter, but it saves a lot of time in little bits, and it doesn't have to be daunting in order to do it. So, hope that answered the question.
No, it did, and I feel like that's maybe that's kind of trying that's, like, what I'm trying to figure out right now is, I feel like I'm trying to find resources to, like, learn how to, like, scratch those little itches, like you said, and find solutions for, like, small things throughout my day, especially as somebody who I work pretty independently on my team with a lot of more traditional external communications and internal communications stuff, so I feel like, um yeah, I feel like I guess I just gotta keep just exploring and trying to find, like, inspiration from maybe other industries too and what other people are doing
Right.
to solutions for, like, things that, I definitely know they can be automated and they can go a bit faster and they can be more efficient. I just have to try to figure out, you know, what those are and what those solutions are.
Yep. Well, one thing that I would suggest is, if you're running into something where you're feeling like, hey, this is something that could be I think maybe it could be automated. Two suggestions. One is you can always reach out to us anytime, and happy to just talk through it with you. And second, I would absolutely use AI to help you brainstorm what can be done
Yeah.
with it. That's probably
Right. Yeah.
it's the biggest takeaway here is, it can help you figure out what you can do, and then help you do it. And I was demonstrating this with Illustrator. If you're using InDesign for a lot of things, it can do InDesign. Co-work is well worth spending some time on. I'll give you a quick example. So I bought a new game device, sort of like a Nintendo Switch, but you can put your own retro games on it. And I have all of these files that are retro games, and literally thousands of them that run everything from like old Atari to, Commodores and what have you. And so I didn't want to just dump everything on there. I wanted to be selective. So I went to Claude Cowork and I said, okay, here's the thing. I have this device. This is the emulators that are running on it. I want you to go and do this research and create a spreadsheet for me of the top 25 games based on reviews and recommendations and popularity for each one of these platforms, and put it in a spreadsheet. And it literally puts it in a spreadsheet in Excel, because Claude Cowork has access to Excel on my machine. Beautifully formatted, all of the data that I needed. I didn't tell it. I mean, I told it some of the data, but it also came up with additional information. Then once I looked at it and was like, okay, that's cool. Love that. Gave it a few more ideas and it finished it. Then I said, here's the folder on my computer that has all of these different game files in it. I want you to take the spreadsheet, compare it to what's in that folder. And if I have the file, I want you to organize them into another folder, a copy into this folder that I can drag and drop on my gaming device. And it just did it. And
That's
it would
crazy.
have taken hours to do that. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that, is just This isn't about AI taking our creativity away. This is about AI giving us more time for creativity.
Yeah, and right now, I pay for chat, and that's, like, pretty much exclusively what I use, but, like, Cloud, like, seeing what you were able to do and, like, their, like, coding extension and everything, like, oh my god, I'm ready to go down that rabbit hole now and really just see, like, what sort of, like, workflows I can create, so
It's
I'm
really cool,
not
and there's a lot. You don't need to be a coder. That's the beauty. You just don't need to be a coder in order to do this stuff. It doesn't hurt to have a little bit of background. I did, web programming and stuff in the early 2000s. I couldn't code my way out of a paper bag now, but I have a
Yeah,
understanding of essentially kind of the structures and things. Honestly, I watch a lot of YouTube videos about this stuff, and you pick up a lot of just the general patterns and flows and ideas, and then that helps you be a little bit more informed when you're talking to Claude. But you could just tell it, "I don't know any of this stuff. I need you to
mhm,
help me think through what the possibilities are," and it will. I mean, it'll handhold you step by step through the process.
crazy.
Yep.
So cool. Well, like I said, like, this was a really good informative session. It was really awesome to see some actual, applications that I feel like I can see myself using in a
Yep.
demonstration, so thank you so much for your
Uh,
time and for staying after to answer some questions.
oh, absolutely. All right. Good to
Alright.
see you.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.